The first thing you need to know is that you, everyone, will never teleport by a sheer act of will of your own. I mean by that a decision that you make at a given instant will not be what will cause the event to occur. Just as with guidance, one must be joined with another who is awake, totally awakened. The event called teleportation will only occur when one is joined with one who is totally awake. You see, in order for anything meaningful, truly meaningful to happen, it must be congruent with the Father's will. Now let's take this out of a religious context for a moment. It must be congruent with the movement of creation, the ongoing current movement of creation. When you or anyone else acts independently, by virtue of authorizing an event or activity or a thought of your own, that which has been authorized does not have congruence. It doesn't fit in, because the one who has exercised this authority didn't bother to check in, you might say, with the movement of creation to see whether it fit. Now, before you take long jaunts, I would encourage you to start going from the living room to the bedroom, or the bedroom to the living room, preferably when no one else is around. For two reasons. One, it might frighten them, and two, you would become self-conscious in the process, and you need to be in your peace. And so, literally, I would encourage you to sit down somewhere and meditate. Become still as possible, and then in an attitude of reaching out to your guide, express your desire to move to the living room, to another chair, if you will. Let it be from one place to another place that is like the first place, chair to chair, you see, or sit on the floor and go from the floor of the bedroom to the floor of the living room. Do not try to will yourself there, because literally the only thing that will happen is a shift of attention. But again, don't sit in the bedroom trying to move your attention to the living room. This is still you trying to participate in the act of authorizing the movement. You ask for guidance. You ask your guide, or you ask the Holy Spirit to move you. Now you will find some subtle things occurring in your mind. One of them will be, well, if I really relinquish this even to the governance of the Holy Spirit, who knows where I'll end up? What if I don't end up in the living room? Now all the amounts to is one last little attempt to justify exercising some authority over the event. It also is a way of justifying not trusting. And just as with listening to guidance where trust is essential to moving from one place to another by a simple shift of the attention. What I am telling you is that you must ask the Holy Spirit or your guide to facilitate the shift of attention, because until it is done for you, you will have a preconception of what that means. It isn't until you yield to the support of the Holy Spirit and have the experience that you will understand what the shifting of attention really means, especially since at this point you think that the shifting of attention is always an act of will, a decision of your own. And yet, shifting the attention can occur without an act of will, and I cannot explain to you how that can be. You must ask for the experience that you cannot be in charge of, so that the experience can be had again without your being in charge of it, but with your knowing what it means to shift the attention in a way that causes you to go in one instant be in the bedroom, and another instant to be in the living room. Now, I am not meaning to make this sound complicated or as though it were something you could never achieve. Since 1988, it has been possible. Prior to that time, it was not possible for anyone on the face of your globe to do so because of the density of the thought, globally speaking. In 1988, a threshold was moved over in which it became possible. And so you can indeed approach this with a clear sense of its possibility, even though you don't have the foggiest notion of how to make it happen. And you know what? I encourage everyone else to give permission for this kind of experience. I want you also to realize that if indeed everyone were able to move anywhere instantaneously, privacy would forever be gone. Safety of your belongings would forever be lost. I mean by that it would be very easy for someone to teleport into your house, pick something up, teleport out with it. This is why it will not happen as an act of will, you see. And those who are willing to allow the experience to occur with the help of the Holy Spirit will never find themselves being able to teleport for an inappropriate reason. Nevertheless, as individuals begin to give permission for the experience, and the experience occurs, everyone will be faced with the opportunity, surprise, surprise, to experience the real meaning of community. It will be something that will draw people together because in the face of its defense will become nonsensical. If you stop and think about it, privacy is for the purpose of defense. You defend your space when you maintain privacy. As the ability to move anywhere instantaneously begins to occur, everyone will find it an absolute requirement for them to stop defining their fellow man as enemy, as someone to protect themselves against. Because if they don't abandon it, they will live in a constant state of fear. A fear so tremendous that they will find ultimately that they have no other choice than to abandon it and embrace and love and let in their fellow man. If everybody, I'm coming back to this illustration that I said couldn't actually happen, but if everybody, anyone and everyone could access to your privacy, it would be an overwhelmingly scary thing. And yet the act of maintaining privacy is an act of constantly resubstantiating separateness, lack of trust. And lack of trust about your fellow man is what each one has to abandon. Whether it's because teleportation is beginning to happen, or perhaps just because it's the only intelligent thing to do. It's the only intelligent thing to do because to do otherwise means that you are maintaining a definition of your fellow man. And in maintaining it, you are holding your fellow man hostage to your definition of him or her as enemy, whom you are justified to keep out of your space, out of your privacy. Now, I just am trying to point out to you that the freedom to be anywhere you want is going to take away privacy. In other words, it's going to require some major changes of how you treat your fellow man and how you conceive your world. And it is another one of those disintegrating structures that seems very valuable but isn't, that many people will work through, I will even say suffer through, because they cannot conceive that what is behind the structure of privacy is desirable. But what is really behind the structure of privacy is communion, is love. Now, you may also wonder whether you want to be the first one to teleport and set all of this into motion. And I encourage you not to be that conscientious or serious about doing it. I encourage you to be light about it. I encourage you to have an expectation. I encourage you to give permission for it. And remember that you must join with your guide or the Holy Spirit, and you must say, "This is my desire. Thy will be done." I will tell you that your capacity to teleport is natural. It is your birthright. It is therefore something that there is no justification for not being able to experience. There is no justification for it not happening. The only thing is that it must happen according to thy will, his will, the Father's will. It must be congruent with the movement of creation that is going on at this moment. It must fit in. So be light-hearted explorer in this regard. If it could have happened any time since 1988, then whatever impact it may have had on the world is ready for.